John, you've got some folks that are that working with you that are out on the West Coast looking at those interventions too. So talk about consistency across larger spans, and then not only in the assessment process, but why is it important to have some of these things standardized when you're talking about your interventions as well?
I appreciate very much what Dr. Weller was saying about standardizing within schools. So if I could just piggyback off that and then jump to the kind of the large picture of regionalized standardization, but just from within a district's perspective, one of your risk managers and your attorneys will tell you that it decreases liability. And the people with who write the checks for lawsuits will be excited about that standardization. I am as well, but it also truly increases safety and protective measures for kids, and that includes the student of concern. So when we're standardized, kids that have our attention, because they're somewhere within this kind of pathway of thinking about acting out in a violent way, we intervene in order to turn them off that pathway. We're not trying to arrest them. We're not trying to kick them out of schools. And so if we have a standardized process that does that throughout all of our schools, regardless of where they move, they're treated the same. And what happens if you don't do that? If you have a school that's far more punitive in their model because you have a strong local control model like Oregon does, and that student moves or is transferred, that student's going to get treated in a punitive manner. And what that will do to any kid that's kind of in the pathway, that 5% of kids that don't really respond to behavioral modification and positive stuff, they've already checked out. They're already disinterested in anything we have to offer. When they end up in a school where people pump the brakes and treat them differently, that's actually a trigger for them to get worse. So I believe by not having it standardized, you're most definitely increasing your risk, depending on where those kids go. Because that's anecdotal, but I know the data supports that. That's one. The second reason is if people do it a different way, when information from one school or school district goes to another school district or school, that information can cause alarm with the new school because they don't understand the language or the system. It may be a totally viable, excellent system, but it doesn't match their construct. And the way our brains work is pretty simple. Anything that's familiar, we're very quick to observe and orient and move to a decision. Milliseconds, if it's familiar. If it's novel, we have to stop. We observe and re-observe, and then we orient to it. We try to make sense. What does this mean? What's this word mean? Is this the same word as we have in our system? And if you have to do that, if it pauses the brain, it causes discomfort. And in a world of education where counselors and principals, SROs are doing 1,000 things, they wear tons of hats, the last thing they need is something that causes them a half hour's more work while they figure it out. First of all, that's taxing to them, the best employees. Those that are not strong in their position just won't do it. Or worse, they're going to look at that kid, this new kid in their school, and they're going to pump the brakes, possibly exclude that kid, become reactionary, maybe kind of overdo the safety plan. And again, we get to that trigger where that student now is angry. I had this thing, people were checking in with me. I had a mentor at my previous school, and now you all are restricting me to the office for the next 3 months. And it can cause that trigger. Those same principles and arguments exist when we regionalize, because in most places, kids move from school to school and district to district. In Oregon, there's lots of movement up and down the I-5 corridor all the way into Washington. In Eastern Washington and Eastern Oregon, kids bounce around between school districts. And so continuity, consistency, and standardization have really served the two states as they've moved forward, both with Department of Ed encouragement, soft mandates.